profile of employee engagement and shining a light on good practice for people who believe there's a better way to work.
Well, hello and welcome to Engage for Success Radio with me, Jo Moffatt. Engage for Success is a not-for-profit movement and we are the UK's leading voice on the topic of employee engagement. We're raising awareness and running events online and around the country. We're developing research, publishing case studies and shining a light on great practice. These weekly radio shows are now available on YouTube. Just search Engage for Success Radio podcast, or you can find the full archive at engageforsuccess.org, where you can find out more about the movement and sign up for our weekly newsletter too. I'm one of the 3 regular hosts of Engage for Success Radio. As I said, my name's Jo Moffatt. And we, as with everyone who's involved in the movement, we all have day jobs. And my day job is that as founder of Woodreed, which was a consultancy leveraging the creative and insight-led approach of the advertising world to engage employees inside their organisations. Having built and then sold Woodreed to 7 Seas, the culture consultancy, I now work as a senior consultant to them, but still supporting clients to create workplace cultures that make workplaces work for employees as well as their shareholders and stakeholders. So I get excited by everything to do with employee engagement, employee experience, internal communication. That's really why I'm involved in these shows, because I get to talk to some really, really interesting people about really interesting topics. And today is no exception. Today is radio show number 625, and we're going to be exploring the hidden link between nutrition and employee engagement. And my special guest this week is Shim Ravalia. Shim is a corporate health strategist. She's also an international best-selling author of a fabulously entitled book, Cut Out Bullshit, a winner of a special recognition award for the Queens in Business Awards 2021, and numerous other awards where she's been a finalist in this sort of space. So I'm very excited to hear what she's got to say, and on this particular topic, which is why I don't think in all the over 600 shows we've done, we've really explored before this link between nutrition and employee engagement. So, we often think of employee engagement as being around culture, leadership, or motivation. But the question that Shim is asking is, what if the real foundation is deeper than that? And we're going to be looking at how nutrient status directly influences our energy, our focus, our resilience, and even how people feel about their work and themselves, whether it's stress and sleep, productivity and performance. We have a kind of health account running along in the background, quietly shaping the way that we show up every day. And by recognizing the hidden cost of nutrient deficiencies in the workplace, organizations have an opportunity to unlock not just healthier employees, but more engaged, innovative and sustainable teams. So for the next half hour, we're going to be looking at how nutrition and employee engagement go hand in hand. So welcome very much to the show, Shim. It's lovely to have you here. I wonder if we can start off by asking you to tell us a little bit about your background before we get into the detail of today's topic.
Absolutely, Jo. Thank you so much for a brilliant introduction there. So my name is Shim. I'm a gut stress expert, sports therapist by trade. Mm-hmm. And I've been running the Gut Intuition for about 7 years. And how it came about was from my previous business that I ran for 6 years in Docklands, and realized how much I burnt out and what the cost of that truly was. Mm-hmm. And then I fell into hot water with my health end of 2020, was it 2018? And realized that so much about my health on a biochemistry level explained some of the results or lack of results that I got within my own organization, within my own teams, and within actually growing the business and organization and getting the best out of people and getting the best out of myself. And so much of it was around the gut-brain connection for me, and how much I neglected sleep and how much I avoided stress or looking at stress, and nutrition kind of also, where I thought I was eating healthy, but I wasn't. And that's kind of led me down this, I suppose, wonderful, passionate rabbit hole, slightly obsessive rabbit hole, when it comes to, what if there's something deeper going on here, and why are we still seeing the same old problems within the workplace when it comes to productivity, when it comes to presenteeism and absenteeism and all these sort of things. And it got me really questioning, not only looking at myself, but once I started doing that, I started to just look at things very, very differently. I was like, what if that person's low mood has got nothing to do with the job role itself, but it's got to do with some of the stuff that's happening biochemically, and they're not even aware of it. So I just feel like there's a lot that can be done here within sort of corporate wellbeing space, and that's what I'm really here with for the Engage for Success Radio, to really talk about this topic.
Lovely, thank you. That's a great start point. So what kind of business was it that you were involved in, the way you started to see this evidence coming to light?
First of all, it was my own business, first one. Then I ran another business, which was Queens in Business, and then the Gut Intuition as well at the same time. And then I started, when I first started this business pre-COVID, I worked with WeWork for like 3 to 4 months actually, between that time frame. And I was doing a lot of lunch and learns, and I realized that this was one of the flagship ones in bank, and I walked in and all you could see was free coffee, gym membership perks, we're talking pool tables and ping pong tables, and I'm like, this is really lovely, but is it what is it doing? Is it really tackling the deeper rooter problems that people are facing within the workplace? And when I did these lunch and learns, it had nothing to do with the perks, but all about all the various things that people knew what was going on with their body, but just wasn't able to really kind of match the everyday world that they have at work. It's almost like two separate things when it doesn't need to be. So that's where I started really sort of understanding, it's like, actually they're not separate things. We're not talking leadership, culture and productivity separate to nutrition and biology, although it sounds separate. Actually the connection is really, really direct.
So tell us how are they connected, because I think most people don't immediately make that connection, do they? So
exactly.
How that is.
Yeah, exactly. So every single aspect of engagement is, we're talking about energy, we're talking about focus, motivation, resilience, patience, creativity, right? Is all driven by the brain and the body. And the brain and the body runs on nutrients, it runs on sleep, it runs on a balanced nervous system. So if somebody is low in key ingredients and nutrients like magnesium, iron, B vitamins, omega-3s, which is our good fats, that doesn't just affect their physical health, it affects their mood, it affects the ability to handle stress, their concentration, and even to a point how confident they might feel in a meeting. So what often gets labeled as, let's for example, like low engagement or poor performance, can sometimes simply be biology just struggling for that person. So for example, someone might think, I'm just not motivated anymore, I'm just lazy, or I'm not as sharp as I used to be. But underneath that could be where blood sugars are just crashing every day. There's just chronic stress, that switch is constantly on. Poor sleep, and I'm not just talking the night before, poor sleep that is chronic, so it's like it's been going on for some time, like years and years, or just a nutrient deficiency going on that's quietly draining their capacity. So engagement isn't just this mindset issue, or it's a skill that they need to go on a course for. It can be looked at in a way that it's an energy leak, it's an energy issue. So energy is very biochemical. So I feel like when organizations start to understand that, or we start to wrap our heads around it bit by bit, we start to see well-being as not as a fluffy add-on, like a perk, but as a core driver of how people actually show up to work every day, because we are all human beings, right? So
yeah, absolutely.
we are very complex. So yeah.
Interesting. So that begs the question, whose responsibility is it for me as an employee to eat properly and get enough sleep and not burn the candle at both ends, and I don't know, read all the business self-help guides that tell me that the only way I can be a success is to get up at 4 a.m. Whose responsibility is it to you talk about the bank, don't you? The bank balance, or the health balance, the health balance. Whose responsibility is it to keep that in balance and to keep it in credit rather than deficit, do you think?
Firstly, it's the employees, because it's their body, it's their responsibility. But I also feel like within an organization, if the organization isn't set up, like the environment or the role isn't fit for the person in terms of, are they getting enough breaks? Are they working, like as you said earlier, burning candles at the both end? Is the organization, the environment, supporting that employee or group of employees to be able to have a balanced input and output? So I think it works both ways, but ultimately I feel like it is the employee's responsibility to take action on that and ask for help or find the right type of help when it comes to stuff like this. But if they're within a role where it's like, I'm doing everything I can, but the hours that I spend, I'm just not getting enough support, or I'm just not able to fit in everything within the work that I do, and there's just no wiggle room, then that creates a problem. They've hit the ceiling there. So I think it's a two-way street, depending on the role and depending on the organization and their, I suppose, attitude towards employee well-being as well.
Have you I mean, you talked at the beginning about having sort of observed this and seen this and thought, come to the conclusion that these things are linked. Have you in your work and through your organization done any real measurement of that, or is it very difficult to do that?
We have. We've worked with various business owners that run organizations that run 6-figure businesses and 7-figure businesses, and they run like of up to 10, 20, 30 people. And we've looked into their bloods, we've looked into their gut health, we've looked into, hormone levels and all sorts of different things, depending on what's going on. It's really, really fascinating. And that's just the physical stuff. And most of the time, what we're seeing is vitamin D levels are low, iron levels are low, magnesium is low, their B complex vitamins are low, omega-3s is just not getting enough healthy fats, are quite low. Generally, they're kind of in the lower range rather than higher ranges. So we do need to look at how they're managing their stress. So it's not just physical. We've actually worked with these individuals on looking at their health history of why they approach their stress levels in this way, for example, or why do they work in this way. I've worked with business owners where because they don't want to add stress to their teams, they'd rather check emails in the midnight and then compromise their sleep. And then it affects their biochemistry, and then they can't seem to, they keep continuously feel sluggish. They can't seem to get going in the morning, for example. And sometimes the way they're set up, their organization or their businesses, actually is a detriment to their own health. So that other people are, a lot happier rather than themselves. And I think that is worth looking into, is how do you set up your business and organization, or how do you set up yourself for the day when you go into work? All these little things matter, and it plays a bigger picture and a bigger role over time.
Interesting. I mean, that's an interesting character that you paint, or a personality type picture that you paint there, because the sort of stereotypical perception rather of the entrepreneurial business startup person who's running something of that nature is that they put all of that stress onto the teams around them and make their lives hell. What you're describing there is people actually carrying a disproportionate weight on their own shoulders in order to protect their people.
Yeah. And also there's an element of people pleasing that goes on as well. Which didn't start when they started a business. It started way earlier. But if we're not aware of it, the patterns just carry on. So, when I talk to business owners or just individuals in general, even retired folk that have worked with us, and I've spoken to them on a one-to-one, on a consultation, so much of their behaviors are driven from childhood, for example, and they're just not aware of it, and then they fall into the same sort of year on year. It's like, oh, this health condition keeps coming back, why does it keep happening to me? And and so much of our emotional and mental well-being do play a big role here as well. So it's not about keeping things like, oh, physical health is separate to emotional health and mental. They're actually all connected as one in my experience and what I've written in the book as well. But it is about being aware, and this is what we talk about, the responsibility part. It's like, if you feel like you're getting the same results over and over again, take a step back, give yourself 2 minutes to pause and think about possibly just why.
Jill, it's fascinating listening to you talking, because what it's making me think about is that perhaps we're all pretty rubbish at actually understanding what we put into our bodies and knowing how the impact of what we put into our bodies, what that is on our overall health and our energy levels and our well-being. We don't really learn that kind of stuff very much. It also, we're not necessarily that self-knowing from a mental health perspective either. And in a way, we talk a lot in this sector, in this industry, employee engagement, workplace culture. There's a huge amount around leadership development and coaching, but it's almost always around coaching for the role. Rather than coaching for self-knowledge or coaching, it does include coaching for self-knowledge, because you can't improve your behaviors and your team interactions if you don't really understand yourself, but not so much about what you're eating in the morning, or what hours you're sleeping at night, whether you're still looking at a screen in bed at midnight. We don't do that kind of stuff, do we? We tend to silo our inputs into business, we treat the professional person, we treat the person in that job role, we treat that strategic corporate objective, rather than taking a more holistic view of things. And that's what's coming through listening to you. Am I right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's looking at things from a 360 point of view. And I know we can only do the best for ourselves with the tools and resources that we have. That's why when we talk about responsibility, I think it's a two-way street. And I think even if some organizations, if they're open to it, to give people the knowledge and tools to support their own health in a more practical sense and personalized to the role as well, and not just have these one-off workshops where, I don't know, you might get a nutritionist coming in to talk about protein, which is important to know, but is it relatable for that organization? And I think too much of corporate well-being right now is still quite generalized, and I think we need to go in with both ears, listening and really, really getting to the crux of, what is really needed within that organization, and then start to put steps in to support the leaders and the employees and the organization as a whole from a 360 point of view, not just sort of, hey, let's talk about leadership and let's talk about culture, which is so important. I'm not saying they're not, they matter, but also what truly drives people to be engaged matters too, with the points that I mentioned earlier. So yeah,
absolutely. So is that the biggest? I mean, if you were to sort of put your finger on what the biggest misconception is that people in organisations have when they talk about employee well-being, is that it? This sort of failure to see the 360 degree joined up approach to things.
Yeah, I from my experience and my personal view on it, many companies assume engagement is just purely cultural, like leadership style, team vibes, perks, all that sort of stuff. But think of it this way, it's like decorating a house without fixing the foundation. Like that, like if your employees are running on low on energy, poor sleep, you're just not getting the best out of them on a day-to-day, nutrient deficiencies and chronic stress and all of that stuff's going on for that person, nothing else will stick. And this is really interesting. I did a presentation for a company last year, and this was from Harvard Business Review, and it was all about sleep well, lead better. And they found that 2 things increased in leaders that were sleep deprived, and that was impatience and irritability. And they measured
Well,
that.
and we are not surprised, are we,
We're
really?
not surprised, right? And I'm like, that. Well, that's not surprising, is it? And it directly impacted in a negative way the team's dynamics and performance overall. Even with chronic stress, like if as an employee or employer, if you're not dealing with your own stress levels, or you're not taking time out to actually really understand that, that's a problem in itself. So even there's been a lot of brain research on our prefrontal cortex in our brain is all about decision making and emotional regulation. And guess what, so many studies have shown that chronic stress actually shrinks that. So in the workplace, how does that show up? Like leaders avoiding decision making perhaps, or can't emotionally regulate, and there's more I suppose frustration, or not listening with both ears, or not having that empathetic kind of approach to other people within the workplace. I'm not saying that happens, but I'm just saying that it can lead down that road if we are numbed, if we're numbed out, if we can't seem to emotionally regulate because of the chronic stress that's going on, which is obviously affecting how our brain functions from on a day-to-day point of view. So you can have the best culture in the world, but if your people are biologically drained, it's like asking a phone to work without a battery. It just doesn't seem to work. So you'll see short attention spans, you'll see irritability, burnout, disengagement. So I don't think no amount of ping pong tables or wellness apps can fix that. So I think what we're talking about here is a real opportunities for companies to treat well-being as a system. The biology, the lifestyle, the support, and not just this nice to have extra, or like on a piece of paper saying that we have all these well-being initiatives, but nobody really knows the true ROI of those initiatives. Is it really working for our
and not approaching them in any kind of in a strategic or integrated way.
That's it, exactly.
We put free fruit in the canteen on a Friday, and we've offered meditation classes and mindfulness interactions, or even actually the sort of the French model of making it illegal to get your people to look at their emails outside working hours, or whatever the specifics of that are. There's more to it. These are all just one-offs, aren't they? And what you're arguing for is you actually need to look at this in a total way. So does that mean that organizations need to revert back to the old model of having a kind of works canteen and providing highly nutritional food and breakout areas where people can go and have a little snooze after lunch? What are we talking about, Shim?
I think it's about an organization looking at what type of roles do we have in this company. And because for example, if you've got a trading company that is trading at awkward hours, so while people are still asleep and traders are working, that's going to be a completely different kind of stress response to the role itself. So I think you do have to have somebody coming in to assess what's going on with the company, to look at the happiness factor of that company, and look at generally what is the stress levels here within this company. So I'm not saying companies need to do this overhaul overnight, but having small, just small tweaks here and there, even if I'm not saying you need to have a canteen with nutritious food. If companies do have that, then fantastic. But what I'm saying is that it's giving employees the education, the empowerment, the tools to sort of say, this is what real nutrition in this company looks like, and this is what we want our employees to approach. It's about an attitude, adapting to an attitude, rather than saying, hey, we've now got salads available. It's still part of culture, but I think it starts from the top. If we can lead, if we've got to lead ourselves to lead better, and that's better leadership equals better health, in my opinion. So I think it's not just all these sort of, I suppose, reactive strategies, as I like to call it, but it's more about the attitude towards it.
And a sense, I think, as well, from what we've talked about so far, that this isn't just you as a line manager's responsibility. This isn't just you as a senior leadership team in an organization. This is everyone has a bit of a responsibility to think about this and think about what they can do for themselves as well as what they can do for their teams and the wider organization.
Absolutely. And if you're in an organization where your line manager, the CEO is really approachable to this stuff, brilliant. You're working for a great organization. If they're not, then that doesn't mean that's the end of the road. I think there's still that person, that employee can still have that responsibility to sort of go, well, I'm going to go and find the answer for myself because I can't function like this. Do you see what I mean? So
I do see what you mean. Yeah, absolutely. And that leads on something I wanted to explore with you as well. We've got about 5 minutes left, which it always amazes me how quickly these fly by. But about individual responsibility so there will be people listening to this show now who might well be struggling with stress. They might well be struggling with a sense of burnout or really feeling, God, is it really Monday? I've got no energy. The bank of Joe is empty today, So I wonder if you can share with us just a few, not from a corporate or organizational perspective, but as an individual, perhaps what are some simple changes that people listening to what you're saying and thinking, well, really, this is interesting. It's making me think a little bit, that people could start making this week.
Yeah, absolutely. So there are a few small shifts that can make a huge difference. And they might sound like common knowledge, well, I knew that, but it's often not common practice. And it's the common practice of it is going to make a big difference. So you don't need to do everything overnight, but it's about starting where you are. It's not about having to feel like you've got to do these things every day. So first and foremost, let's start with nutrition. Everyone's got to eat. Everyone's got to stabilize their energy in some way. So it's about focusing on simple things with your meals or when you have time to have those meals. And it's about making sure you got protein on your plate, good healthy fats, slow release carbs. Just it might, like I said, it might seem like common knowledge, but it's often not common practice. So even small changes like that, like not skipping breakfast or not having a monster energy drink or Red Bull to give you wings first thing in the morning, maybe making those changes slightly more and having breakfast that one day, that or having extra vegetables to your lunch, or it can massively reduce your fatigue and mood swings. And interestingly, this was an article written by Business News Daily, which I think is really important here. They wrote all about, if you want to get more work done at work, you got to eat better. And they found that employees with unhealthy diets were 66% more likely to experience productivity loss as a result, because of the sluggishness, the heaviness, the lack of motivation that went through from consistently having a bit of a slightly unhealthy diet, which is quite interesting. And that's why I always say nutrition always comes first, because we've got to eat, and you might as well eat well rather than bad. Sleep matters. That's the second one. You know how we protect our bank account?
Yes.
I want people to start looking like taking that same attitude towards their sleep. So prioritizing sleep like it's a non-negotiable. And it can be simple things like small steps like dimming the lights an hour before bed. And if you don't have the ability to dim lights, have a small lamp on the side. Keeping devices away and just sticking to a consistent wake-up time can absolutely quite dramatically improve focus and resilience, because your body, your cells, is getting the much needed recovery that it needs from such a heavy day on your mental workload, body workload, and so on. So sleep absolutely needs to be a non-negotiable and prioritized as well.
Yeah, interesting. So are these self-help business folk who bang on about getting up at 4 a.m. because that's really that's how you can be an international superstar, successful business person? Are they talking to quote your fabulous book, Cut Out the Bullshit? Are they talking complete bullshit here?
Joe, you've hit the nail on the head. They are, because you've got to understand as human beings, we thrive on rhythms. We have a circadian rhythm. Circadian rhythm is basically your sleep rhythm. So we wake up when the sun rises, and our cortisol levels rise as the sun rises, which is our stress hormones. It's meant to go high. And then by the evening, around about sort of 5, 6 p.m., that's when our melatonin starts to increase, which is our sleep hormone. But guess what? Most of us are still switched on to digital devices. So we're exposed to artificial light, which affects our rhythm. So, and if you're waking up at 4 a.m. when your body is still repairing, recovering, and you're hitting it hard in the gym, while that might look good or feel good in the moment, think of the consistency of that and long-term negative effects it can have on the body when your body just doesn't get the recovery that it needs.
Yeah, fascinating.
So this whole 4 a.m., 5 a.m. club, you know, I've never been part of that. I remember speaking to a business owner who ran a big organization in India, and he said that he'd get up at 3:30 for a 4 a.m. workout in the gym. And I'm like, good for you. You know, it's not my job to judge anybody, but if they do ask me, is that good? I will tell them directly that the pros and cons and the long-term effects of that, and so on. I will never, ever say to somebody, oh, don't do that. Go and experience it for yourself, and then you'll find your middle with it. So, yeah.
Absolutely. We've run out of time, Shim.
Oh, no worries.
We are over. So I'm going to have to end the show now. But it's been fabulous talking to you. I feel quite inspired to go and look at what I'm eating tonight and make sure that it's suitable, and make sure that I don't take that my iPad to bed with me either. So thank you. It's been a fascinating. I mean, I feel there's an awful lot more we could talk about, but it's certainly food for thought, I think, is probably the way to describe it. So thank you very much, Shim Ravalia, for joining us today. Thank you for listening to Engage for Success Radio. Don't forget you can download or stream any of the great shows from our archive at any time. Just visit engageforsuccess.org. And that's if you want to get involved in the movement or sign up for our newsletter. That's also where you can get in touch too. So thank you very much, and goodbye.
Engage for Success Radio, raising the profile of employee engagement and shining a light on good practice for people who believe there's a better way to work.